what is the impact that homelessness is having on urban society? Okay, because I mean, you could sit there and list all the problems. They're lazy, they're drug addicts, they trash areas and all this other stuff. But what is it what is the push and pull within society that is being created because of homelessness, and because we have become a more urban society? We have gotten away from the farms, and we've gotten away from a lot of other things. And not only that, our system is breaking down, has been breaking down for a long time. It has a huge negative impact on the way that not only people see it, people handle it, but those of us that are out here, the way that we have to deal with society bearing down on us. Okay, so if you're a housed person and you see a homeless person, all you're thinking of is, okay, now that's a drug addict, that's a lazy bum that needs to go get a job, or we just need to throw them in an insane asylum because they got too many mental health issues. But really what you're saying is that we want all of the benefits, but we don't actually want to realize that there are consequences to all of our actions as a society. Okay, and so when you're housed up and you look at the homeless, you just think that these people are draining and taking away from you, not realizing that that's actually the way that the system is designed, and the system is working exactly the way it's supposed to. And without the homeless, you don't have the ability for organizations like the homeless industrial complex to make money. Okay, because we live in a capitalistic society, and your wealth and the amount of money that you have determines your social status within society and kind of how you're able to see everything. Okay, and so as we live in this whole, well, housing is scarce, but yet there's more than enough housing to house every single person. But you have some people that afford 2, 3, 4 houses. You have people that can do things that most people can't do when it comes to housing. What it does is it creates the problem and makes it much bigger. Okay, and I really think that the impact that homelessness is having is, it is not only creating a divide, but it is giving us justification to be able to treat our fellow man, our fellow countrymen, like less than human, because we have and they don't, and we see them as the problem. And in reality, the homeless person is not necessarily the problem. They are the end result of the way that the system actually works. Okay, so let me give you an example of kind of how this works. Okay, so you guys have heard me talk about how I took over 2 houses using adverse possession. First house I did adverse possession. Second house, because I did so good, they actually gave me they signed the house over to me and let me work with it until the bank decided that it wanted it back. Okay, because during the '08 crash, we had a lot of abandoned, foreclosed houses. It was driving down the value of houses. People were losing their wealth. They were losing their investment. Okay, and by taking over the first house, what I was doing is I was taking away the ability for the drug traffic in that small little section of town. I was taking away its safe haven, its place to be able to exist. But we're not talking about stoners, we're not talking about drunks, we're talking about the white dopers. Okay, the hard drugs. And because I was able to occupy that first house and go in there and start fixing it up and repairing it, and I didn't have to pay a mortgage, because there was a lot of stuff that I didn't have to pay for in order to take over that house. But what I was doing, what my intent was to not only restore the home values, but to restore safety back to the neighborhood. And because I didn't have that huge that huge overhead of having to pay a mortgage with a high interest rate, and then having to pay taxes on top of it, and then having to pay for this and pay for that. Home ownership is so expensive that after having that first house, I realized I probably never want to own a house in my lifetime, just because It is, I see it more as a negative asset than a positive asset. And that is the consequences of the system in which we live. Now, because I was able to take over that house and repair it, and the people that moved in, they knew what was going on because I was up front. I wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. They were taking the same risk that I was. But what did they get in exchange? They got rent that was about half of the average rent that was out there, because what I did is, because a lot of your homeless are single individuals, and so whereas everywhere else was saying, okay, we want $700 a month plus 1/3 or 1/4 of the utilities, depending if you lived in a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom house, and you were doing roommates. I just said $350. That covers all of your bills, and that is what you're going to have to pay to be able to live here. And so I would take that, I would pay the bills, and then I would take the money that was left over, and I would do repairs to the house to make it more livable, more comfortable for those of us that were living there. Okay, and so if this were something to happen on a large scale, it would drive the price of rent down. Not only would it drive the price of rent down, it would give people that really were working unskilled, low-skilled jobs, that really weren't getting a lot of hours, it would give them an opportunity to be able to have something that was affordable, so that they in turn could save their money, maybe move towards a different goal, maybe go off to college or anything else like that. But I also called up the local homeless shelter, and I said, look, I know that you got people that are looking to move out and looking to get their own place, and I will give you guys first dibs on any room that I have come available. So every time I had a room come available, the first thing I would do is call down to the local homeless shelter, see if they had anybody that could afford $350 a month in rent, or whatever, and they would send me people. And quite a few of my tenants actually were homeless at this point in time. Some of them were on Social Security, some of them were I just got a job, and so I need to be able to have cheap rent so I can save and get something better, or at least have the ability to take a little bit of time within my life and make things better. Okay, and so that was the positive impact that having the being able to go in there and to take over a house and not have that huge overhead. But instead, what we have, and what is making the problem worse, is that rent is going up, housing prices are going up. Now, in my opinion, I think that houses cost the same today as they did 100 years ago. The difference is inflation and the devaluation of your currency. So in a lot of ways, like gold and silver is a way to be able to retain value, so was a house. But as wages go down and value goes up, as our currency becomes devalued, we see homelessness expand, we see the drug addiction expand, we see all of this, all of the negative consequences of homelessness start to show their ugly head, because as a society we are more interested in profit and being able to subjugate another for our own improvement, or our own success. We look at it in various ways, and I'm sure that some of you could probably even come up with a few more things that I haven't even covered here. Okay, but when you take rent and when you put it out of reach for a growing number of people, and you make it larger and larger, so that more and more people are unable to afford housing, or you have a bunch of senior citizens that have to cram into, you got like 6 people cramming into a 3-bedroom house so that they can afford the rent, so that they don't actually have to live out on the streets and deal with the negative feedback that they get from society. You're creating the issue and making it much worse than what it already is. Okay, and so a lot of people think that, oh, well, you just got to go get a job. But the thing is employers, their whole goal is to pay you the least amount of possible, so that they can make the most amount profit as possible, and therefore they're going to pay you as low amount as possible. And with the immigrants that are coming across the border, those guys are keeping wages suppressed so that people here in America can cannot make the livable wages that we used to make, 50, 75, 80 years ago. Okay. And so therefore it has a negative consequence on all of society, because everybody else looks and goes, well, I'm working my butt off so that I can afford rent. Why can't you? Well, the thing is after a while, what happens to people that can't afford rent, that through no fault of their own lose their job through a recession or a company closing due to poor management, or the crazy stuff that's happening on the border that put me out of business, all of these things will take the individual that's already hanging on by a thread and bring them to a point where they say, I give up, I've had enough, you know what, screw this. And I don't know about you, but I know a couple of people that when it gets really, really rough, sometimes you just want to crawl into a bottle, and sometimes you just can't crawl back out of that bottle once you get back in, because you're drinking and drugging because of how bad it is, and it's just your way of escaping the sorrows to get that one moment of reprieve. But then when you come back to reality and you see everything that's going on, you still there's no change in the loss of hope for the average individual. And so as our rent prices are skyrocketing, for every $100 that rent goes up, homelessness increases by 9%. And so these landlords in a lot of ways are making their money. They're able to make their mortgage plus $200, $300, $400, $500 because they're middlemaning it. What we have done is prioritize profit over the well-being of our fellow human being. And then when we've got to pay the consequences for it, instead of standing up and realizing that we are creating the issue as a society, we want to complain about the problem and act like we had nothing to do with it. Okay. And so you have this constant push and pull of those that, I need to make money, this is an investment, I want to be able to have as much wealth as possible, which great, having wealth is fine. Getting paid for the fruits of your labor is fine. But there are certain things, especially in a modern society, that we have got to take into account to say, hey, look, just because we're all living in a house, we're not living on a farm, we're not able to grow our own food because now we got to go to the grocery store, we're doing specialized skills so that there's one guy that knows how to do heating and air and there's one guy that knows how to do plumbing, but could they cross-pollinate? No, they most likelihood couldn't, unless they went there and spent a lifetime learning all these different skills and trades that our ancestors would be able to pass on to their posterity. Okay, and so therefore we're also seeing the negative consequences of that, and it's playing out in homelessness. And so I think what we're really missing as a society, and why urban homelessness is starting to really look bad, it's destroying our cities and all of these things, because we as a society have failed to look at what it is that we're doing to actually contribute to the problem. Now, in my opinion, what do I think a decent solution is that there are certain things that are a bare necessity if you're going to live in our society. Okay, you should be able to have a roof, food, water, electricity. Okay, bare minimum, because then you can go get a job, you can be productive in society, you can contribute to society, and you can have the feeling of self-worth that you're actually doing something worthwhile instead of just flipping burgers so that you can make ends meet. And a lot of people, in order to be able to pay rent, lose out on not only their dreams and their aspirations to be something better and to move up in life, because they're too busy worrying about paying the high cost of rent, that one day when McDonald's decides to automate that store, and they don't have any skills because they got a job as soon as they could, they didn't have good grades, they were a poor student. Well, it doesn't mean that just because you were a poor student as a kid doesn't mean that you're going to be a poor student as an adult. It just means that the learning environment that you were in as a kid really did not fit your learning style. Okay, and so I think that there are certain things that should be void of profit, and also void of people owning multiple things. You own one house, it's all you should own, okay? It's just, and I know a lot of you people will call me a socialist and a communist and stuff like that, but no, what it is realizing that at the end of the day, we are all one. We are only as strong as our weakest link. And, because we force people out into the workforce, and in some ways because of, early pregnancy or whatever it may be, that they're giving up their dreams, their aspirations, or they go off and they take these mountains of debt because they were promised that if you go to college, then you can afford a house. But because the colleges become greedy and want to make as much money as possible, which on one hand it's good, but there has to be a certain amount of restraint. Greed is more or less the want of more than what you are entitled to or capable of, or more than what you should take. Okay, you don't go I had a conversation with somebody last night, and we were talking about what was it, like perma foliage or something like that, and you leave 10 or 20% of the harvest for nature to come get, for nature to replenish itself. But those that are greedy want to be able to take 100% of it plus more than they should be taking. Well, not only did I get 100% of this, but I want what you have too, and I'm going to come take it from you. And this is the sickness that is in our society. And this is something that if we are going to come out of it and actually have a decent society, something that we can be proud of, we need to be able to look at our fellow man and realize, okay, you only need to take 90%, leave the 10%, and it's okay. You don't need to have everything, okay? Because you don't need to have $1 billion. What are you going to do with $1 billion? Okay, $100 million? Okay, fine. Okay, that still leaves enough for everybody else to be able to get. But when you take from everybody else for yourself, somebody else is going to end up missing out. And that is what we're seeing with homelessness in these urban cities, is that you have, they say that by 2030, there's going to be 3 companies that own all, if not 80% of the houses in all of America. And why are they owning it? For profit, for greed, because they don't just want what they have, they want what you have as well. And so many people look at greed and go, oh, that's okay, that's the American way. No, that's not the American way. That is the capitalist way. That is the way of those that are elite, that want to be able, that have an inferiority complex to where they want to control everything, okay? Because they fear that if they don't have control, then they will lose. And, it comes from a place of fear that you will never have enough. Okay, so I'd love to hear your comments on this and see what you guys think. But as far as how urban homelessness is impacting society, I think more or less, yes, it is destroying society on one hand, but we got to look at the root cause. Not only the root cause, but look at the solution and do some of our own self-reflection. Okay, so you know how to help the channel. Become a subscriber, leave me a tip down in the tip jar, become a member of Patreon, all that stuff. It's all down in the description. And thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.